welcome to Crime in Court. This is my series. It ends with a legal battle, although this time around we're going to be reading Justin Baldoni's lawsuit against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, the powerful Hollywood couple, the it couple, some may say. I don't know, whatever. I don't really follow Hollywood anymore. I used to care. I don't anymore. I think a lot of people in Hollywood are soulless and very shallow. But anyways, I don't know, like I don't have any personal feelings about any of them at this time. Justin, I'm seeing he's got some receipts, whereas Blake and Ryan are not looking good. So this is going to be part one. Sorry, here I am. So this is going to be part one of a multiple series. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to play out. I'm going to try to get through as much as I can with you. It is a 170 something page document, I think 180 pages. So I'm going to split it up potentially in like 2, 3 parts, but I'm going to do longer episodes for you guys, and I'll just take a break in between and splice them together so you guys have more at once. So that's what I'm going to be doing for this series. And let me shrink myself before we begin. I wanted to, before we begin reading through Justin Baldoni's lawsuit, which just came out, so this is almost hot off the presses. We're going to listen to Brian Friedman, the attorney for Justin Baldoni, what he has to say about this situation. So this was 10 days ago. He was on the Megyn Kelly show, and she was interviewing him about this particular situation. So let me move those up here. All right, let's go.
Leads us to the Blake Lively situation.
By the way, this is Brian Friedman. He is also the attorney for the Menendez family. So not the Menendez brothers, but the Menendez brothers family members, all 20 plus members that are very, very, very much in support of the brothers being released ASAP and coming home. So he represents the family as well as Justin Baldoni. So if you recognize him or heard his name, that's, on my channel before, that's probably where you heard it. So anyway, so this is his response to Blake's the reading that we just did. So the complaint that just came out from Blake, which had very little context, a lot of, well, this sounds bad without any context type of out of place quotes and things like that. And how he got the text messages is also weird. So we're going to learn all of that, hopefully. And this is the response to that before he filed this countersuit. So just keep that in mind. The countersuit just came out like yesterday, 2 days ago, yesterday. And then this is him speaking 10 days ago.
Now, she would say in this situation, she's the victim, Baldoni's the bad guy. And just to lay it out for the audience in a little bit more detail, what she's claiming is that even though she was a much bigger star than Justin Baldoni, who I never heard of before this lawsuit, she's the much bigger star, and she's married to an even bigger star than she is, Ryan Reynolds, that she came in and onto this project and started to get harassed and mistreated by Justin and some others. And that when she then demanded that all of her concerns be rectified, that he did it, but that he was basically lying in wait for when the film would get released in case she went public with what happened, that he and his PR team determined to bury her, to ruin her, and that this wave of bad press we did see about Blake Lively when the film came out this past summer was not organic. It was totally orchestrated by Justin and his team, and they've gotten their hands on a bunch of texts, especially amongst the PR team, but a couple involving Justin, that seemed to suggest they were ready to, quote, destroy her and to ruin her reputation. But I'll say one thing. The evidence that then they actually did it is far less fruitful, right? The text about like...
The texts out of context do kind of sound bad, but when you get the whole story, maybe the way that it's being presented by Lively might be a little disingenuous.
We could. Here's what we might do if we need to. Those are everywhere. The text proving they did, far less ubiquitous in this complaint. And what you've said now in your lawsuit against the Times is don't even believe the texts that you see in the Lively lawsuit because they're seriously misrepresented, omitting major facts that would give them an entirely different meaning, never mind greater context. And that's where I want to bring you in. So tell us what we don't know about this fight between these two.
Well, what you don't know is a lot, right? Because Blake Lively's dominated the media. What they did was they worked with the New York Times, or publicists worked directly with the New York Times. They shared.
Remember, Justin actually also sued the New York Times. We'll get to that lawsuit, but this came out, and I think this is more important to go over right now. So we're kind of going out of order, but there was so Blake filed her first complaint, I guess, and then he filed his response, but it wasn't a response to her. He filed a suit for a defamation suit against the New York Times for printing things that were knowingly untrue.
Shared illegally obtained text messages. They shared those together. They concocted a complaint that they filed with the Civil Rights Division. They omitted texts that would have provided context, texts that were in the exact same string that would have provided context of what was really going on. Mm-hmm. And in fact, they actually...
So they're manipulating evidence, basically. That's illegal.
Removed emojis from text that show that there was satire and there was joking around by the PR crisis agents. I mean, the PR crisis...
God. Oh my God, they took out emojis. Because, like you can't read a text the same, without the emojis. So they took out emojis to make it seem more sinister than playful. That's evil.
Agent was brought in because actually Blake Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, was planting stories negative to Justin. And all Justin wanted to do, and it's...
So they're planting negative stories all the while blaming and claiming that Justin is doing the same thing, but against Blake, putting out negative press against Blake with his crisis management team. But there was never any proof of that. There was only proof that they were talking about being protected, which means to me, I can read that as he wants to save his reputation, protect his image, protect himself in this case, because he already knew that Blake Lively was an issue and he didn't want it to escalate to this. So but just in case, he was making sure that he kept records and things of that nature.
All through the text messages. If the New York Times apparently reviewed 1,000 or more pages of text messages, they would have seen it. Justin never wanted to hurt her, never wanted to be negative to her. He wanted to protect the film. He wanted to protect himself, and he wanted to protect her from making negative allegations about him that were made up and that are proven in this case. That you can see in late July, before Melissa Nathan, the crisis PR person, was hired, you can see Leslie Sloan planting stories. We have evidence of it. The young kids would call it receipts. We call it evidence. And it's all over the place. There are text messages that refute every single thing in that complaint. And it's just disgusting when you go after someone, you try to destroy their life. And actually the evidence shows something different. Blake Lively was no victim here. She was in control. She was in power, and she took over this film.
So for those who are not in the Hollywood world, what is wrong with her taking over the film? She's a big star. Her name is what made it. It's what got eyeballs on it. How unusual is it, as you allege in your lawsuit, to have an actress come in and start editing scenes, taking over the final cut, excluding the director from it, the director and two editors on the film, in exchanges that we have now that we'll be posting on MeghanKelly.com, are talking openly about how it's about to air, it's about to hit screens, and they haven't seen it because she appears to have wrested control from them. So how unusual is that?
I've never seen it before in my 30-plus year career in Hollywood. And an executive producer is below a producer in the film world. An executive producer signed up to be an executive producer, and that's it. And an actress. And that's what she was supposed to be. As the time progressed in this film, she decided that she wanted to be a producer. She, applied to be a producer. She went and got, the dailies. She started to make edits. She wanted to be part of the editing team. There were people hired, like human beings actually hired to do the editing job, who had done work as editors. She wanted to be part of that team. The next thing you know, she took over the editing. She started making threats that she wouldn't promote the movie, that she wanted to be in control of marketing of the movie, that she would do nothing in terms of promotion unless she was the actual editor. She came up with her own cut of the film, which is, you have a director who has a cut, and she had a competing cut of the film. And for an executive producer to have a competing cut of a film is incredibly bizarre. But when she starts threatening people and saying, I'm not going to promote the film, I'm not going to do anything unless you use my cut, that's when it starts to be awfully incendiary. And the concern
Very, very manipulative and coercive to get her way.
really is that she used these allegations of sexual harassment, and she used these allegations of bullying.
This woman, okay, so as you may know, I am a survivor of DV. I have an ex-husband who is very um, emotionally, verbally, psychologically, financially um, maltreated me. But I mean, sometimes physical, but like never hitting or anything like that. But he still was an awful human being. And so for anyone out there to fake being a victim of ABUSE makes me outraged because you're using something that real people have to go through and deal with, and it affects your entire life forever and ever, like you never are the same again. And here she is saying, "Oh, I'm so abused on the set." And we're going to see otherwise with some receipts. So just a little bit more of this, and then we'll get into the document.
To try and leverage her position so she could be the de facto director in the case. And, as you'll hear in the voice note, as you'll see in the evidence, she had Justin sitting in a basement in his own movie with his friends and family during the premiere of the movie, which should have been the biggest night of his career.
Isn't that crazy? She made him sit in the basement with his family while she was up in the main floor having her own separate premiere. What a highfalutin, tootin' little. Ugh, I don't like people like that.
He was sitting in the basement.
Did you know that?
Okay, so that's it. He was sitting in the basement for his own premiere, which I think is horrific. This I'm showing you right now it's on a loop. This is somebody put this TikTok video together and it's just on a loop and you can see this is like extra footage from the set of this it ends with us. I forgot what it was called there for a second. But as you can see, I credit to Colonel Kurtz, pop culture, politics, and more. All right. So, Me Too hoaxes. So they posted this video, and you can see they're talking about their scene or whatever, and she pulls Justin into her and like does it with her hips too, like forces or thrusts her hips on him, and he looks very uncomfortable, in my opinion, and he looks like he's not into it with her being so touchy-feely. Um, so that's my opinion. I just wanted to share that with you because I saw it. And video will tell, the texts will tell, and fortunately, we will have some actual receipts from Justin Baldoni. So I wanted you to remember, we're going to go over the file in just 1 second, but I want you to remember I put the link to this Google file. So I have a folder here titled Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, and I have all of the current documents and things that we're going over. And right now we're going over BL versus JB, Baldoni versus Reynolds hyphen Lively. So that's the one we're going over, and it's a long one. So let's get to it. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you so much for being here We are talking Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, and in this case, we're also talking about Ryan Reynolds. So as you can see, Wayfarer Studios, which is the name of Justin Baldoni's um, production company. So Wayfarer Studios, LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, Justin Baldoni as an individual, Jamie Heath as an individual. It Ends With Us movie, a California limited liability company, Melissa Nathan, an individual, and Jennifer Abel, an individual. So those are all of the plaintiffs against Blake Lively, an individual, Ryan Reynolds, an individual, Leslie Sloan, an individual, and Vision PR Inc., a New York corporation, which must be some company that represents them. All right. Or we'll find out, I guess. All right. So plaintiffs Wayfarer Studios, a a Delaware limited liability company, Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, It Ends With Us movie, Melissa Nathan, and Jennifer Abel, a California limited liability company, collectively plaintiffs, so all of those people combined are the plaintiffs, bring their claims for damages against Blake Lively, an individual, Ryan Reynolds, an individual, and Leslie Sloan, an individual who I believe is their PR person or their agent or something like that, manager, something. An individual and Vision PR Inc., a New York corporation, and the plaintiffs allege. The following is not a story plaintiffs ever wished to tell. Unfortunately, defendant Blake Lively, or later known as just Lively, has unequivocally left them with no choice, not only to set the record straight in response to Lively's accusations, but also to put the spotlight on the parts of Hollywood that they have dedicated their careers to being the antithesis of. That task was always going to be an uphill battle. They never imagined they would encounter it to this degree. Had Lively chosen to merely ride out the self inflicted press catastrophe she faced in August 2024, the public would likely have moved on and never known the truth about her. This is most likely true because when all the bad press was coming about, it was because she was doing her press tours and she was too busy talking about her products, her hair care products, and things like that, than to actually be talking about the seriousness of the tone of the movie, which is DV. And she'd be like all, light and airy and making jokes, and it wasn't appropriate. And that's how she got her own reputation. Nothing Justin did, but let's move on and see what else he says. So they would have never known that she deliberately and systematically robbed plaintiffs Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios of their movie. No one except the parties involved would have known that she used threats and extortion to regulate the colleagues she once highly praised to a basement to sit in their own premiere, while she enjoyed the spotlight of a premiere and after party that was ultimately co-financed by both Wayfarer and Sony. What I try not to say too many bad words on my show, but Jesus, see you next Tuesday. That's what I think. All right, so she would have gotten away with these things and more because Baldoni focused entirely on seeing the film succeed, would have held his tongue as he had through the year and a half that Lively tormented him, his family, and his partners. I mean, we're in point two. He's coming out right out of the gate swinging, and this is great. I love it. So Lively could not tolerate her publicity tainted image for even a moment, and further could not accept that it was entirely of her own making. She needed a scapegoat, and rather than admit and take responsibility for her own mishaps, she chose to blame plaintiffs in a malicious and unforgivably public manner. So when you file legal documents against someone and it gets out there and it's public and you know it's going to get public, those are going to be things that the news, the media is going to pick up on and take words from her filing and throw it out there, making Justin look bad. So, because that's what they do. I mean, but if you read Blake's thing and not knowing that Justin has receipts, then you would possibly take her side, not knowing that there is another side to it. Perhaps. I don't know. But anyways, so when she and Reynolds could not force Baldoni and Wayfarer to read a statement she and her representatives prepared, extorting them to take accountability in defense of Lively's actions, she lay in wait for months preparing to publicly attack Baldoni by falsely claiming that he had SA'd her. The same falsified stories she had calculatingly devised and used throughout the production of this film in order to take control were now being used publicly to destroy Baldoni and plaintiffs. Lively stole Wayfarer's movie, hijacked Wayfarer's premiere, destroyed plaintiffs' personal and professional reputations and livelihood, and aimed to drive, well, yeah, because he's not going to be able to make as much money, and his reputation is based on being a male feminist. He supports women. He has a podcast where he talks about that kind of stuff. So she's destroying his ability to make money and his reputation by putting these false claims out there. And aimed to drive plaintiffs out of business entirely. So here they're claiming that they were trying to just do away with Justin Baldoni from the industry altogether. Perhaps. And by the way, It Ends With Us had like a $20 million budget, and it made about 350 million at box office. So, or gross or whatever it is. So there is money to be had from this movie, but that doesn't mean that Lively gets it just because Wayfair made money on the movie. So it could be part of the fact that the movie was a success too, that she was trying to get more money. I don't know. I don't know her reasons, but it just seems odd to me that you would lie and do this if you weren't a shitty person. Sorry. It further appears that Lively worked for months with the equally powerful New York Times. She worked for months. She worked for months with the New York Times to prepare a false and damaging narrative to deploy against the plaintiffs. Not surprisingly, Lively prepared an administrative complaint with the Civil Rights Department in California, the CRD complaint, in an attempt. So that was the one. Okay, so maybe that was the one that this one. Oh, I closed my page. Hold on one sec. All right, so here's what we have read so far is the Blake Lively harassment, which is oh no, wait, that's not the one we read. This is the one for California, perhaps? This is why I'm confused as to why there's multiple complaints, because this is an 80-page complaint. Where did it go? Oh, um, not really sure. Hold on. All right, I'm not sure. I think this was probably because this one was filed in California, the one where she's asking for the complaint for damages for all these different things. But then she also, what we read through was the 90-page, whoops, we read through the 90-page, go away, because I highlight everything. We went through her complaint. This must be for, this is the Southern District of New York. So I'm thinking this is for California because it's got all the California um, things on there. Anyways, they're both in there if you guys want to take a look. Um, so we read through in the first few episodes, we read through this one, the Blake Lively New York lawsuit. So there's also a complaint, I think, for California. There's also a complaint from her publicist. We'll go over that, and other lawsuit. Yeah, there's another lawsuit in there too. We'll go over that another time. But anyways, just to give you an idea of what all the suits are. So there's the one that was filed in California. I think that one came first. And then he filed his complaint to um, the New York Times, which we'll go over later, and which now we're finding out she worked with for months with the equally powerful New York Times to prepare a false and damaging narrative. So that's so scary that this happens in our world, and this happens with politicians, celebrities, it's just regular news stories. We don't get the truth. Anyways, let's keep going. So, not surprisingly, Lively prepared an administrative complaint with the Civil Rights Department in California, the CRD, in an attempt to use the litigation privilege to shield her behind the scenes conspiracy with the New York Times. But upon information and belief, the CRD complaint was filed only after defendants spent months feeding falsehoods to the New York Times, intending that they be disseminated to damage the plaintiffs. Lively delivered the CRD complaint to plaintiffs over the Christmas holiday. Okay, so that was yeah, and then he responded back. And rather than promptly file a lawsuit, Lively, on information and belief, leaked the typically private CRD complaint to the public, utilizing the New York Times as a conduit for her revenge. So she leaks this private document, usually not public document, and she puts it out there basically just to ruin Justin's reputation, or so it might seem. Um, which was rife with lies. Okay, so her complaint that was filed was rife with lies and doctored evidence. So, like he said, Brian Friedman said in his interview, they pretty much manipulated evidence. They took emojis and things and took things out of context and deleted other stuff. So Lively then waited 11 days to file suit against plaintiffs in what seemed to be a desperate move after the public questioned why she had never filed a civil suit. On information and belief, Lively never intended to file a civil suit, which would have triggered plaintiffs' right to discovery, including obtaining evidence and deposing Lively under oath. But because she didn't file a lawsuit, it was just this CRD complaint. He's not given the opportunity, I guess, to respond. So by the time Lively actually filed a lawsuit against plaintiffs, the damage to plaintiffs was done by virtue of Lively's months of colluding with the New York Times on a false and malicious narrative, unshielded by any privilege. Make no mistake, these actions were deliberate. Plaintiffs now have no choice but to fight back armed only with the truth and the mountain of concrete evidence disproving Lively's allegations. Heartbreakingly, a film that Baldoni envisioned years ago would honor the survivors of DV by telling their story with the lofty goal of making a positive impact in the world has now been overshadowed beyond recognition solely as a result of Lively's actions and cruelty. Heck yeah. This is really well written. I'm liking Brian Friedman's the way he writes his emotions and things. All right, so Lively wields immense power as one of the world's best known celebrities. I would say that she's not probably best known. Like, okay, I never watched her in anything until It Ends With Us, and I only watched that because I'm drawn to things that have to do with DV, and it was on, and I was recovering from surgery, and I watched it. But normally, like, I wouldn't have sought that out. Um, and I mean, it was an okay movie. The message is good, I suppose. I would love to see what Justin Baldoni's cut was because they ended up using her cut, or else she wasn't going to promote the movie. So Lively wields immense power. In 2024, she used that power to seize control of the film It Ends With Us, produced and co-financed by plaintiff Wayfarer and directed by Baldoni, who also portrayed the lead Ryle. She set out to destroy plaintiffs' livelihoods and businesses if they did not bend to her incessant demands, and when they refused to give way, she did exactly that, accusing them of foul and reprehensible misconduct of the intimate kind. So Wayfarer was blindsided when Lively, upon the conclusion of the industry strikes, refused to return to production absent the company's agreeing to her non-negotiable protections for return to production. That insinuated misconduct had occurred during filming, which, as evidence will establish, it did not. So when those things that she wanted um, Heath and Baldoni to sign, the protections for return to production, that was all stuff, and we read through those, and it made it seem like there had been things that were done already on set, and this was almost like an admission, which they didn't admit to them. They didn't sign all of them or admit or agree to all of the all of the check marks on her list. So Wayfarer was equally blindsided when Lively leveraged this document, essentially signed under duress, to seize control of the film, ultimately getting her own cut of the film and coveted PGA mark, and at her command, ousting Baldoni from all marketing and promotional efforts with many of the cast members and the author, all of whom he, until then, had long-standing positive relationships with. So, before she turned all of the cast members against him, he got along very well with everyone. Lively's exclusion of Baldoni from the promotion of the film backfired as she chose to callously promote her hair care and alcoholic beverage products rather than bring attention to survivors of DV, the entire premise of the film. Baldoni, now prohibited from attending events or taking photos with Lively and the cast, promoted the film as he had always intended ever since he first began the process of making the film years ago. Yeah, she's mad that he went off and he made some of his own like messages for social media and stuff. Like, who cares? He can't do that. He's an individual person. He's not you. He's allowed to go and do his own kind of promotion on social media. He doesn't need to have Blake in on it with him every single time he does something for the movie. It's his movie. He can do what he wants. All right, so when Lively faced significant public backlash from what was often referred to as her tone deaf and insensitive press tour for the film, she she doubled down on her false and misleading accusations against Baldoni. She seemed determined to make Baldoni the real life villain in her story. Her publicist, Leslie Sloan, went so far as to propagate malicious stories portraying Baldoni as a predator, a term Lively's husband Ryan Reynolds also used to describe Baldoni when he called Baldoni's own agent. Modern society justly reviles uh, essayers, people who perpetrate essay harassment, and Lively knew full well that making those allegations would be a career death sentence for the plaintiffs. Absolutely. Especially given that Baldoni lived his private and public life as an impassioned advocate for gender equality and healthy masculinity. She did not expect, however, that plaintiffs would be able to meet these allegations with concrete documentary evidence disproving her claims and demonstrating that they, not Lively, were the targets of a calculated and vitriolic smear campaign. That evidence included in part is the basis for plaintiffs' claims against defendants for their extortion, defamation, and further wrongdoing. The film was the hotly anticipated adaptation of a worldwide best-selling book by Colleen Hoover, and by starring in it as Lily, Lively stood to enhance her already considerable star power. But she was not content merely to headline one of the year's biggest movies. Instead, Apparently driven by overweening ambition and a need for control, Lively eventually leveraged her power as a wealthy celebrity to wrest the reins from her co-stars and the film's director Baldoni, insisting on total control over every aspect of the film she could get her hands on, from wardrobe to marketing strategy to music, even creating her own cut of the film. Not only did Lively's power play cost numerous people their jobs, but at every turn, her wrong-headed creative decisions reflected her fundamental lack of understanding of the book, the film, the of the book that the film was based on. This came as no surprise to her worried colleagues, given that even well into production, Lively had not even read the book. If you're starring in a movie based on a book, you probably should read the book so you can understand the characters. But that's just my opinion. All right, so number one, this is, we missed a footnote here because it was in the middle of a sentence. So, in an early meeting with Baldoni, Lively foreshadowed what was to come, stating, "I'm afraid you have too much power," referencing Baldoni's dual role as producer and director. This statement made an early impact on Baldoni, who felt compelled to reassure her that the relationship would be collaborative and went above and beyond to make it so. This was not an invitation to sideline him and his producing partners. I think um, I think Justin is a nice guy, and she took his niceness as a weakness, and she didn't realize that he was going to fight back with receipts. Oh yeah, there's another footnote here. So Lively later claimed that she read the book, but text evidence shows that well into production she had not, and in fact expressed that she had chosen not to read the book. She even tried to Google the color of her character's hair rather than pick up the book. So there you have that. This is a text message from Baldoni to Heath from September 14th, 2023. He says, "After reading the book, which had 150 pages to build their relationship, we have combined scenes to heighten the stakes for Ryle in pursuit of Lily, utilizing humor and his desire to sleep with her. While I understand Blake's reasons for not wanting to read the book does a very good job in getting in Lily's mind during her interactions with Ryle and setting up the why behind her attraction to him, which ultimately helps us understand why she stays in the end." I mean, kind of important then, if you are playing that character, you might want to get in the mind of that character, do whatever you can to get into that mind. But reading's too hard, I know. Lively's disastrous marketing efforts and tone deaf press interviews and appearances backfired and led to widespread criticism of Lively's promotional approach to the film's highly sensitive focus on domestic violence. Past videos of Lively resurfaced online videos that appeared to solidify public perception that Lively was an insensitive mean girl who cared more about peddling her products than acknowledging the DV survivor community. Social media commenters quickly pointed out that her tie-in of her alcoholic beverages was in particularly poor taste, given the World Health Organization estimates that 55% of DV incidents are linked to alcohol. Unbelievably, Lively made this harmful and irresponsible message worse by naming a drink at her premiere after party, "Rile You Wait," after the character who committed DV against her in the film. The suggestion that Wayfarer caused the online backlash against her is absurd, given the evidence of her own insensitivity. Sadly, this backlash could have been avoided had she not refused to meet with the film's DV partner organization, nomore.org. There's a good source for you if you need it. I didn't even know that existed, but that is nomore.org. Is a resource for you if you are in a situation or you know someone who is. So let me backtrack. Sadly, This backlash could have been avoided had she not refused to meet with the film's domestic violence partner organization, nomore.org, as Baldoni had offered. Even a brief visit to their website or a simple online search would have readily uncovered this and other information on the topic of DV. So she wasn't even like educated in the topic of this. So she's probably one of the worst people to have played this character, to be honest. And I'm sure Baldoni wishes that he had given the role to somebody else. Meanwhile, Baldoni, whom Lively herself had ensured was excluded from participating in her marketing efforts, was safeguarded from this backlash as he focused on amplifying the voices of those affected by DV as originally intended when he reached out to author Colleen Hoover 5 years earlier and documented by his partnership with nomore.org dating back to 2022. So he's going back in time and showing you receipts. Well, he hasn't shown a receipt yet, but he will. Or he did. Text message there, but there will be more. Um, Bal- Baldoni's sincere efforts were well received, even more so in contrast with Lively's campaign to downplay the premise of the film and sell hair care and alcohol products. Lively, enraged that her plans were foiled and armed with proof of alleged essay in the form of a 17-point list, excuse me, in a 17-point list of demands she had required plaintiffs to sign just months earlier, focused her rage on Baldoni, blaming him for the consequences of her own missteps. Consequences. Meanwhile, Stephanie Jones, founder of Jones Work LLC, Wayfarer, and Baldoni's erstwhile PR firm, were embroiled in a personal and professional crisis. Her increasingly erratic behavior had driven away not only high profile clients, but also her right hand woman, plaintiff Jennifer Abel, who oversaw the Jones Works Los Angeles office. Jones' behavior grew more and more bizarre as she lashed out at loyal clients like Wayfarer in rage-filled rants and veered away from professional experience and strategy when making critical decisions affecting Jones Works clients. After a final outburst against Wayfarer in which she outright refused to comply with the direct instructions, Wayfarer had no choice but to cut ties with Jones and Jones Works rather than leave their public image in the hands of what appeared to be an out-of-control Jones whose actions were not aligned with Wayfarer and Baldoni's worldview and wishes. Jones was filled with impotent rage at Wayfarer and at Abel, who a month before had announced her decision to leave Jones Works to form her own company. Jones saw an opportunity for revenge and she took it. On information and belief, Jones, Lively, Reynolds, and Leslie Sloan, Lively's publicist, and others concocted a plan whereby Jones would seize Abel's phone upon her departure and mine it for messages that, stripped of context, could be used to concoct a false narrative that the disastrous press coverage of Lily's callous and opportunistic Lively's, sorry, not Lily, Lively's callous and opportunistic comments and the public reaction to those comments were not Lively's fault at all, but the result of the calculated, though in reality non existent, smear campaign by Baldoni and his team. We have a footnote here. While it is not entirely uncommon to request that an existing employee return company property, it is not often the case that personal phones, phone numbers, and communications are seized, made public, and weaponized against the employee and company's own clients. So basically, this woman Jones is like, I'm leaving your company, and they seize her personal phone and don't give it back for a while. It's really ridiculous. So, on information and belief, Jones's role in this scheme accounts for her conspicuous absence from Lively's retelling of events. Plaintiffs are informed and believe that defendants have been working in concert since at least August 2024, when Sloan boasted to Nathan that she had seen her texts and that Nathan would soon be sued. Though Lively claimed Baldoni was the one smearing her, the reality is that it was Lively and her team who carefully planned and implemented a vile smear campaign against Baldoni and Wayfarer to deflect attention and blame for Lively's disastrous misjudgments. Lively would recast herself as the long-suffering martyr by portraying Baldoni and Wayfarer as her persecutors. The masterminds behind a smear campaign that evidence will show did not exist. Defendant Sloan of Vision PR was all too willing to carry out this strategy, especially once armed with ammunition by Jones, who was bent on revenge against her ex-employee and former client. Shortly after the film's premiere and the public backlash against Lively, Lively, together with her husband, defendant Ryan Reynolds, here comes Ryan, let's see what happens, her and Ryan demanded through their talent agency, which also represented Wayfair and Baldoni, that plaintiffs publicly apologize for so-called mistakes during production in order to deflect the avalanche of negative media coverage of Lively. Reynolds and Lively drafted a statement and demanded that Baldoni, Wayfarer, and Heath issue that statement requiring them to apologize to the public and fall on their sword despite having done nothing wrong, or else the gloves would come off. And that's a quote. Multiple WME executives. Who's WME? Is that Wayfarer? I don't know. Multiple executives acknowledged that in their experience, Lively and Reynolds' threats were not to be taken lightly, though admitting to false, vague, and unspecified mistakes would be tantamount to admitting to career-ending misconduct for Justin. So Baldoni, Wayfarer, and Heath refused to apologize for sins they had never committed. They took a stand, knowing full well that Lively and Reynolds would bring the full might of their celebrity artillery against them. Wow. And that is precisely what happened. Lively, working with her husband, her publicist, and Jones, among others, set out on a campaign to tar and feather plaintiffs in the press. They conspired and worked in concert with the New York Times to put out a blockbuster news report as devastating as it was false. They advanced a fabricated narrative in the press that plaintiffs had essayed or harassed Lively, then embarked on the calculated and malicious smear campaign to destroy her reputation as retaliation for daring to complain about the harassment. So that was in her complaint. We read through that it was all retaliation for her complaining. Defendants laid their trap carefully over a period of months before springing it all at once on the eve of the winter holidays. Just as plainly, they knew full well that their claims were entirely baseless because their own wrongfully obtained evidence proved that neither the alleged harassment nor the accompanying smear campaign against Lively ever existed. Yet Lively moved forward with her plan with ruthless precision, doubling down in the face of abundant evidence casting doubt on the veracity of her story. Lively even went so far as to serve her lawsuit on the Los Angeles-based defendants as they evacuated their homes in the midst of devastating fires engulfing their city. She went so far to serve her lawsuit in the middle of the law. Okay, sorry, I had to read that again. My brain lost it for a second. Okay. On a day when defendants were gathering their kids and pets, preparing go bags and monitoring evacuation orders while fearing for their homes, Lively, from the safety of her penthouse in New York, deployed process servers in the midst of these troubling times. At bottom, this is not a case about celebrities snipping at each other in the press. By the way, Brian Friedman did lose his home in the fires, so that's probably a good point that he's bringing up. Like, look, there's fires happening in LA, and she's sitting here, all the celebrities' homes, including probably theirs and Baldoni's, probably have homes that might be in trouble. So you would think that they would have other priorities at the time, but I guess not. They wanted to make sure that they smeared Justin some more right before the holidays, or right after the holidays, I should say. Um, at bottom, this is not a case about celebrities snipping at each other in the press. This is a case about two of the most popular stars in the world deploying their enormous power to steal an entire film right out of the hands of its director and production studio. Then, when Lively and Reynolds' efforts failed to win them the acclaim that they believed they so richly deserved, they turned their fury on their chosen scapegoat. Tolerating a year and a half of their behavior while remaining polite and professional, so trying to acquiesce and be nice and, get along to get along, at every turn offered Baldoni and Wayfair no protection. So he tolerated this for quite some time. By bringing the complaint, plaintiffs commit themselves to seeking and proving the facts, but based not on insinuations built from selectively edited and context-free text snippets, but by putting all the evidence before the court and the public. When plaintiffs have their day in court, the jury will recognize that even the most powerful celebrity cannot bend the truth to her will. Damn, this guy is good. I love this. He's throwing a lot of shade at this couple, and I'm here for it. Baldoni and Wayfarer purchased the rights to It Ends With Us. Baldoni co-founded Wayfarer in 2019. From the beginning, Wayfarer was dedicated to being a different kind of studio, one that produced world-class entertainment driven by a powerful vision for change. Baldoni, whose film career was dedicated to producing and directing meaningful films to have a positive impact on the world, was deeply moved when he read this book. Think about that. So if you're not familiar with who he is, he was on a TV show called Jane the Virgin. She was a virgin. She was saving herself for marriage. She goes to her regular gynae appointment and she accidentally gets artificially inseminated instead of just a checkup, which um, she was supposed to have because the woman who the doctor was in a frantic state. She was not paying attention to what she was doing. So, anyways, it ends up Jane, who was saving herself for her boyfriend Michael when they got married, has to tell her boyfriend Michael, like, I'm pregnant. And yeah, so she keeps the baby. She has a little girl, and Raphael is the biological father. Raphael is played by Baldoni. So he's the biological father of the baby and wants to be in the baby's life and all that. It creates a whole bunch of complications because he's this rich guy that owns a hotel. It's a really good, funny show, but if you haven't seen it, I've binged it all on Netflix. I think it might still be on there. Anyways, so yeah, so he's funny. He's a good actor, at least. That's all I have. That's my only reference to Baldoni is um this show that he was on he was really funny in. But he also played or he also directed it because I remember watching the credits in the beginning saying like he directed it and all that stuff too. Like later on in the seasons, he became a director, and so I kind of knew like directing was some way he wanted to go with his career. And so if you think about that, like this guy gets offered this show. It's semi-successful, and then finally, like he wants to do something with his filmmaking and make something positive and bring home a good message, and he can't even do that because it gets totally overshadowed by all this other crap. Because Lively has to be a mean girl, in my opinion. Um, where was I? So Baldoni, whose film career was dedicated to producing and directing meaningful films, to have a positive impact on the world, was deeply moved when he read the book and genuinely believed he could make a film that could save lives. His last two films were created as a result of a deep sense of responsibility to share meaningful stories. Baldoni's feature film directorial debut, 5 Feet Apart, was based on a young woman, Claire Wineland, who lived with cystic fibrosis and curiously documented her plight on YouTube. Baldoni, his family, and his friends developed a friendship with Claire, whose journey deeply inspired Baldoni. Was this an actual, oh yeah, an actual documentary? Whose journey deeply inspired Baldoni. Before Claire passed away, yeah, I guess so, Baldoni promised he would tell her story, and he did just that in a film that he directed. The film had wide impact on the CF community, and Baldoni still receives messages about the film's impact. Baldoni also supports her foundation yearly and remained close with Claire's parents, even bringing her father as his guest to the premiere of It Ends With Us. He sounds like such a nice guy. I mean, I don't know anything about him, but he seems decent. Baldoni's more recent film was the Wayfarer film Clouds, a true story about a teenager with cancer, Zach Sobich, I don't know, Sobich, who finds joyful purpose and inspiration in music. In pursuit of that same vision, in 2019, Wayfarer acquired the film rights to It Ends With Us, a Colleen Hoover novel published in 2016. Though positioned as a romance novel, the book explores themes of DV and generational patterns of that word, the maltreatment, and these messages resonated deeply with readers and drew a passionate fan base. In 2021, the novel exploded in popularity thanks to the social media phenomenon Book Talk. Many fans expressed, is that a thing? Book Talk? People talk about books that they read on TikTok or something? Many fans expressed how important the book was to them as survivors of DV and intimate partner maltreatment. When It Ends With Us, author Colleen Hoover watched 5 Feet Apart in theaters, she told Baldoni, "You are the right person to make this movie," referring to It Ends With Us. Baldoni's early emails to Hoover demonstrate his commitment to doing so in the manner he envisioned would be most impactful. So, as you can tell, he always wanted to make it about DB and make it about surviving DB. In fact, it was Hoover who suggested Baldoni portray Ryle. Here's a email from Justin to Colleen, February 1st, 2019. He says, "Hello, Colleen. Thank you for the intro, redacted. Wow, it's such a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for being open to having me potentially option your book. Some quick backstory. My purpose and intention in this insane business are simple: create impact by making content that helps us remember our shared humanity. Create or content that asks us to be better, to make the hard choice in the moment that one day on our deathbeds we will be grateful for. It's been a tough road, but an incredible one, as our industry doesn't often reward those of us trying to change culture. Luckily, it's the messages of those that watch the content that are the reward and the lives we have affected. I've always believed the financial reward will come, but it's not the primary motivation." This guy. I stand with Justin so far. As Joanna may have told you, I am building and got funding for a company whose mission is to tell high end, meaningful stories. And I just finished my first film with my second set up at WB going this fall based on this short doc I directed 7 years ago. Also, if you'd like to see an early screening of 5 Feet Apart, I'm sure I could make that happen as well. Where are you based? Just wanted to say, of the reviews I read for your book, this one stood out to me and makes me so excited to potentially work with you. So he gives a quote and then he says, "Please send over an ebook. Looking forward to it, Jason." And then Colleen says, I'm finally coming back up for air. The release, so this is still in 2019. She's now in April. When did he do it? February 1st. She's in April 11th. I'm finally coming up for air from the release of the film, but still shooting Jane for another 2 weeks. By the way, were you able to see it? Would love to know your thoughts. We actually started filming the final episode today. Crazy, so grateful. So I haven't been able to end It Ends With Us off. I haven't been able to get It Ends With Us off my mind. Such an important story, so damn romantic and beautiful and tragic and hopeful. I always say that both in art and life, all the best stories are always two things at once, and this is so much what your book is: joy and pain, love and sorrow. You did such a beautiful job of covering incredibly difficult subject matter and playing it out on the realistic and unforgettable way. So she's talking about that other movie that he did. But what I love the most is the opportunity to let so many women feel seen on the screen via this particular story. I can't even imagine how many women were there who are stuck in a relationship like this and via this story could find the strength to create a better life for themselves and for their children. There are so many opportunities to partner with organizations and create impact with a story like this. I love you I love that you held nothing back from the pain of Lily and Ryle's past. I love that they really are no there really are no bad guys and that we are the sums of our experiences and our trauma. I love the opportunity for narration and the stunning and gorgeous impact of the title pay off at the end. These are the kind of stories that change and save lives, and I believe this story in particular can continue to have a huge impact on the world. SO. What is SO? If you if you will have me, I would love to option it from you. On a separate note, the screenplay for 5 Feet Apart was adapted into a novel and has been on the New York Times bestseller list since before the release of the movie last month. I know you have your charity, and I would be happy to donate some signed copies for the Bookworm box. Let me know what you think. Much love. Justin. Okay, so that was Justin again to Colleen. We got receipts that he was quite ready to put out the message of surviving DV and getting out of those relationships. So Colleen writes back, thank you so much for the email. I wasn't expecting you to read it so quickly. I would love to take you or to talk with you more about the project. You get the book, and that's the most important thing to me. My fear is that I'll option it to someone who thinks it's a hot romance and they'll take it in an absolute wrong way. I'm going to be upfront with you about a couple of things so you can decide if you want to move forward. I've sold several film options and I realize not all of them get made, and I'm okay with that. One of the film options was not a great experience. The producers started a fundraising campaign for the film without my knowledge or permission beforehand and ended up taking over $100,000 from the readers. The film was never made, the option was never paid, and I ended up pulling the plug on the project, and the producers never refunded readers their money. I felt terrible, and my readers were the ones punished, so I mailed out $15,000 worth of free products to those who donated to the campaign. I want to be positive that crowdsourcing is not something that will be done when it comes to this film. It's important to me that a funding plan is in place and won't affect the supporters of the book. So she doesn't want the people who read the book to have to pay for the movie. Makes sense? Her fans. So while that experience wasn't a positive one, I had a wonderful experience working with the producer on Confess. It was a 7 episode series that was picked up by Awestruck and Go 90, but unfortunately, right before it released, Go 90 declared they were shutting down. Because of that, Confess released on an already defunct platform just a week before they were scheduled to shut down. Luckily, my readers got to watch it, so not all was lost. and the overall experience was so much fun and very surreal. I didn't really have a lot of involvement beyond reading the script and getting the dailies. I just handed it over and let them do their thing because I was immersed in other projects at the time. It Ends With Us is important to me, though. I would love more involvement on this film. I've actually been working on a script for it already, along with a producer friend of mine who lives in LA. Her name is blank, and she is a very dear friend of mine and is a huge fan and supporter of this book. We sat down for a week and outlined it last month, but I had to put a pause on it because I'm on deadline for this book I'm writing. We've planned on picking it back up in 2 weeks and diving into it. Even though I'm the author, I believe I've been able to separate myself enough from the format of the book to know that what would make the best setup for the film. So she has to change it around, at least in some ways. While I do please, while I do want to please the readers who have read the book, I understand the need to make a film that will equally touch those who haven't read the book. Are you based out of Los Angeles? Maybe we can meet and have a chat about our vision for the film to make sure we're on the same page. I'm based out of Texas, but I'm in LA a lot. Other than ensuring my readers won't be asking to donate to the fundraising for a film and hoping to have more involvement in the process, when it comes to the script and production, I don't really have any other requests. I realize your experience with film far outweighs mine, and based on the magnificent adaptation you did of 5 Feet Apart, I'm confident you could do this book justice and that our visions will align. I watched the film 2 nights ago and immediately started the book yesterday. Sometimes I like to do it backwards. I think you did a wonderful job, and even though I'm not finished with the book yet, I feel like the essence of it was captured beautifully through film. I wrote a book where one of the characters suffers from CF, so I've done a lot of research on the subject and thought Rachel and you did such an amazing portrayal of what carriers of CF go through. In fact, our very first donation through the Bookworm box was to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. We donated in honor of the child of one of my readers. His name is redacted, and he's just an incredibly inspiring kid. And she gives a video. It's actually funny you emailed me when you did. When the email through my phone, I was on your website browsing Wayfair. Loved the Me Too chat. Okay, that's enough rambling. I really do appreciate the email and appreciate you taking a chance on reading the book. My readers are so ready to support this book, and it has meant so much and so many of them so naturally. I want them to be happy, sorry, and I want to bring them an adaptation they'll be proud of. Did you happen to read the author's note at the end of the novel? It's a quick read. If you don't get the chance to read it, my mother inspired this book, so maybe that's why I've been so hesitant to sell the rights to it in the past. I feel good about this, though. I feel good about you. I've seen your past work, your passion, and your love for humanity, and honestly, I feel there's no one better for the project. Before I direct you to my agent, I just want to get your thoughts on the above. Thanks so much, Justin. I hope you and the family were able to get some vacation time. Colleen. However, this works out, I would love books for your bookstore. In fact, we just started a box and would love to feature 5 Feet Apart in the subscription box if there's a way we can buy a few hundred copies at cost. Everyone needs the book in their possession. Now we've got another email from Colleen. This is the next day, April 12th, 2019. She says, have you given any thought to whether you want an acting role in this? Say, maybe Ryle? I could see it. So the author of the book clearly suggested that he play the main character when his intention was to be producer and director, and he probably didn't even think about being Ryle. because he's already doing enough being producer and director. But acting too. Now he's got to act and he's got to deal with Blake Lively's divahood or whatever it is. So soon after Wayfarer partnered with Sony to co-finance and distribute the film, their agreement included, at Wayfarer and Baldoni's insistence, that the provision was a deal breaker, a requirement that 1% of the film's proceeds be donated in support of survivors of DV. That 1% was ultimately earmarked for the organization No More, with which Baldoni had sought to partner as early as September 2022. Stunningly, later in the process, Lively refused the opportunity to meet with No More, despite playing the lead role in a movie centered on themes of survival and resilience in the face of DV. I just don't get why she wouldn't do the necessary things, why she wouldn't do the minimum that's required of her to be in this role. Understand your character. But nah, she doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to understand DV. It's too much of a peasant problem because she's above everybody else, and that's not something she ever has to deal with. So, whatever. So, as they began making the film, Baldoni and Wayfarer felt an immense responsibility to do justice not only to the story of protagonist Lily Bloom, but to the stories of survivors around the world. Plaintiff Heath, CEO of Wayfarer, expressed to Forbes on June 28, 2024, his high hopes for the film. Jeff Conway, Meet the Wayfarer Studios team bringing It Ends With Us to theaters. Alrighty. As they wait. Okay, here I was. Sorry. I hope that people leave the theater feeling inspired, that for those who have been hurt, that they feel seen and the story was told in a way that honored them. I feel like people who may in themselves I feel like people who may, in themselves, as someone that may hurt somebody, may think twice about it. So I hope that people leave feeling that they got a glimpse into a world that oftentimes we turn our eyes away from. A lot of times we do. Look at the Menendez brothers. The world's still not ready to hear what happened to them and how horrible they were treated by their parents and that they were victims and they were protecting themselves out of fear. The world still doesn't want to believe that. A lot of people are still like, hey, well, they're exactly where they belong, and they're just greedy rich kids, which is exactly what the prosecutor story was. So it just goes to show that the world doesn't evolve as quickly as we think it does on some of these issues. Like we're so evolved on what transgenderism or whatever, but we can't get behind support for victims of maltreatment the same way. It just doesn't make any sense to me. All right, so although Wayfarer learned that Lively had a reputation for being difficult to work with, Baldoni at the time was not dissuaded and found her to be genuine. I bet he's regretting that now. During pre-production, Baldoni and Lively began a promising and close collaboration. On or about December 31st, 2022, Lively agreed to take the lead role of Lily Bloom. As part of her subsequent negotiations, Lively was granted an executive producer credit, a title often given to talent of her stature. Lively had requested a producer credit, but Wayfarer and Sony demurred, given that such a title would not accurately reflect the role she had been asked to play in the production. So they didn't want to do it. Sony and Wayfarer were like, nah, you you didn't earn it. You don't get it. Wayfarer did not request nor require that Lively contribute to the film in any capacity beyond her role as an actor and executive producer. So she had the executive producer credit. Why not just be happy with that? So In the beginning, it appeared that Baldoni and Lively would have a positive, collaborative, creative partnership. Baldoni and Lively worked closely in the early days of the film, trading ideas that filling key roles in the film's cast and crew. Their working relationship grew close. Baldoni and Lively shared stories and pictures from their lives, commiserated over family illnesses, and exchanged jokes and memes. Baldoni offered concern and support when Lively faced family health concerns. They texted almost daily, and a friendly banter established a comfortable dynamic that, under typical circumstances, would have made working together easy. They got along fine in the beginning, is what they're saying. So, what's up? What happened? Lively even felt comfortable enough to make silly jokes, redirecting a sweet compliment Baldoni gave. So Justin says, well played. Blake says, I feel the same. It's such a good feeling to get work done that we're proud of and to do it together. It just clicks when we find it. And that's just as rewarding as filming it or editing it or marketing it or releasing it. This is all storytelling. This is why we do it. Thank you for your collaboration. I'm really proud of what we're doing. And then Justin says, or Justin loved, I feel the same. He says, I like the sentimental Blake. And she says, never met her. And he says, I also like asshole Blake. Don't worry. Okay, good night. She says, I never met her, so have my suppositories. Okay, good night. Laughed at, so have my suppositories, because he said, I like asshole Blake. Real funny. Anyways, so that's them obviously being friendly and having, light banter with one another. So when did it become that he was essaying her? This was the nature of their relationship, which made Lively's later allegations all the more baffling. Lively begins asserting control almost immediately. Almost immediately, Lively began inserting herself into the production process in intrusive ways well beyond the scope of her contractual entitlements. For example, Lively began to insist on creative control over her character's wardrobe. While lead actors are sometimes granted approval over their character's general look, they generally do not receive full control over wardrobe decisions without impact from the director or producers. What may seem like an innocuous request can, in fact, have monumental impact on a film production. So you don't just go around changing your wardrobe or anything like that. So you don't have control over that stuff. Ignoring the director's vision for her character and disposing of the weeks of effort and creativity spent at the wardrobe team on shopping and carefully crafting her wardrobe, Lily sent hundreds of images to the film's costume designer, including it into the late hours of the evening, depicting the style of wardrobe she wanted for her character. The costume designer had to reshop Lively's wardrobe, far exceeding the allocated budget and diverting time and resources, while also preparing wardrobes for the rest of the cast. At one point, Lively insisted that her character had money and could afford $5,000 shoes despite being a fledgling small business owner. This forced Baldoni to rethink the entire script that had been in the works for well over a year and was approved by both Sony and Wayfarer, a script that Wayfarer had commissioned multiple drafts of and incorporated countless notes, including input from the book's author Colleen Hoover. The wardrobe budget ballooned, all because of Lively. Lively often refused to participate in wardrobe fittings at the production office, which was a mere 15 minutes from Lively's home. Instead, she insisted that the costume department pack up wardrobe and deliver it to her personal residence, loading the wardrobe department on trucks and delivering the content to Lively's home in the middle of congested Manhattan for fittings cost time and money, always in short supply on any major film. Requests of this nature are typically made during contract negotiations. Since Lively made no such request at the time, this added expense was not included in the budget. Lively, who had a greater obligation to the studios as an executive producer, paid no heed to budget constraints, let alone to the months of planning that had already been completed. Wow. She's something else. She is, hmm, she has no regard for others. Or am I just reading this wrong? It seems to me like she just doesn't care about others, and she's the queen bee. She thinks she's an A-lister when really she's like a probably a C-list celebrity, but being with Ryan Reynolds makes her a B-list celebrity. So really that's all she has going for her, and her bestie Taylor Swift, I guess. Oh geez, that was probably so loud on the mic. I just banged my water on the desk. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. In an effort to maintain harmony at the start of their working relationship and to avoid further delays caused by wardrobe conflicts, Baldoni and the studio reluctantly ceded full control to Lively over her wardrobe. This concession quickly proved regrettable. On the first day of principal photography, paparazzi captured and published photos of Lively in character wearing her hand-picked wardrobe. These images were widely reported as unflattering and sparked a backlash from Sony. Notably, Lively herself had voiced insecurities about the public perception of her casting as Lily Bloom. Lily is described as a 23-year-old woman and recent college graduate within the first few pages of the book, which Lively would have known had she read the book before production, despite having admitted to ordering a copy months before. So she's actually much older than the character. She's like in her 30s, 34, something like that, and the character is 23. So she doesn't even know that she's supposed to be playing it like a 23-year-old recently out of college. She ordered only the book only after she committed to the role on December 20th. Nonetheless, when Lively learned that Lily was a decade plus younger than herself in the book, Lively asked the author, Colleen Hoover, explain in her public casting announcement that they have decided to age up the book's character for the film. Hoover didn't put that statement out the way that Lively requested, and Lively was not happy. Is she ever happy? Seems like we keep changing the goalpost every time. Where'd that stupid footnote come from? Here we go. All right, so following these events, Baldoni approached Lively in her trailer to discuss necessary wardrobe adjustments and resetting their relationship to assert her role as director and his need to have approval over her wardrobe. The conversation, while professional, took considerable time and was later grossly misinterpreted in Lively's CRD complaint, which falsely characterized the exchange as a lengthy outburst. That delayed filming and caused the crew to wait for hours while Baldoni cried in Lively's dressing room. On information belief, Lively circulated this false account to the New York Times with the intention and result that it would be widely published. Why is he in there waiting or crying for Lively's dressing room? Ay, ay, ay. All right, so the conversation did not take hours, and any length of time it took was not because Baldoni cried for hours. In truth, rather than take heed of the concerns of the film's distributor and director, Lively took this time, among other things, to suggest to Baldoni that he was being gaslit by Sony, Heath, and other producers to try to convince him to let her continue to take the helm. Baldoni did briefly become emotional during the conversation, but only in a response to what he believed was a genuine compliment from Lively, praising his work as a director and actor. In hindsight, this was part and parcel of the ongoing pattern of manipulation and gaslighting by Lively. intended to continue to allow her autonomy over the wardrobe. Just a conniving little see you next Tuesday. That's kind of how I'm reading this. I don't know how you guys are reading it, but that's how I'm reading it. So Lively, hold on, my dog's being loud. So Lively later distorted the conversation in support of her baseless harassment allegations, alleging that Baldoni made inappropriate comments on her appearance. In reality, Baldoni, the film's director, was relaying the distributor's concerns and the widespread social media criticism regarding the wardrobe's failure to meet audience expectations, a sentiment Baldoni shared because a lot of people who had read the book had said the way that Blake dressed in this film is not the way Lily Bloom dressed. So there was a bit of a discrepancy in Lively's wardrobe and Lily, the character. So there's that. So in reality, Baldoni, the film's director, was relaying the distributor's concerns. This incident is just one of the many examples of Lively's troubling pattern of manipulation and lies. As another example, early in the pre production stage, Lively sent Baldoni a long text describing how directors never permitted her to write scenes for the movies she acted in, nor gave her writing credits, even making her hand scribble her suggestions for lines so that they could not be traced to her. Lively boasted that she had even written for her husband's movies. Then Lively asked if she could take a pass at writing the rooftop scene in It Ends With Us, in which the characters Ryle and Lily first met. This pivotal scene, much beloved by book fans, was critical for setting the tone of the movie, so Baldoni was reluctant to allow an actor rather than a union screenwriter rewrite this key scene. But Baldoni felt the need to allow Lively to rewrite the scene and agreed to take a look at what she put together. The draft at the rooftop scene that Lively sent Baldoni dramatically differed. The draft that she sent to Baldoni dramatically differed from what had been originally written. Baldoni was hesitant about many of the changes, but thanked Lively for her passion and diplomatically told her that the scene would likely end up being somewhere between the original version and Lively's version. Seemingly stung by Baldoni's exceedingly mild resistance, Lively did not respond and went silent for multiple days. Later, she confirmed in a text message below that Baldoni's response, of course, didn't feel great for me, or another mega celebrity friend and Ryan Reynolds, to have my passion praised instead of my specific contribution. Lively was referring to an earlier meeting where Lively summoned Baldoni to her New York penthouse, where Baldoni was greeted by Ryan Reynolds, who launched into enthusiastic praise for Lively's version of the scene. So Baldoni he walks into Lively's house and he's kind of ambushed with Ryan Reynolds there, this high-powered celebrity. Probably, she did this to throw some weight around to, have a little edge. So she brings Ryan Reynolds to her business meetings, apparently, and Ryan sits there and is like, well, my wife's seen the one that she wrote. That's so much better, right? It's so much better than the one that you had. He's sitting there like trying to talk his wife up. Hours later, as the meeting was ending, a famous and famously close friend of Ryan Reynolds and Lively walked into the room and similarly began praising Lively's script. This is believed to have been Taylor Swift. Baldoni understood the subtext. He needed to comply with Lively's direction for the script. Later, Baldoni felt obliged to text Lively to say that he had liked her pages and hadn't needed Reynolds or her mega celebrity friend to pressure him. Lively responded that the two were her dragons. Lively went on to say, they, meaning Ryan Reynolds and her mega celebrity friend Taylor Swift, also know I'm not always good at making sure I'm seen. Wait, what? Okay, so they also know I'm not always good at making sure I'm seen and utilized for fear of threatening egos or fear of affecting the ease of the process. They don't give a shit about that, and because of that, everyone listens to them with immense respect and enthusiasm. So I guess I have to stop worrying about people liking me. And then she did the I don't know emoji. I don't know. The message could not have been clearer. Baldoni was not just dealing with Lively, he was also facing Lively's dragons, two of the most influential and wealthy celebrities in the world who were not afraid to make things very difficult for him. Like Lively says, if you send me the FDX, I'll work when I can steal moments. And yes, of course, please send to Christy. We're all on the same team with the same goal. And Justin says, great. Also, was working on rooftop scene today. I really love what you did. It really does help a lot, makes it so much more fun and interesting. And I would have felt that way without Ryan and Taylor. There we go, Taylor Swift. Winky face, you really are a talent across the board. Really excited and grateful to do this together. Blake responds back, that's very appreciated and means a lot. I'm deeply inspired by the film we're going to make outside of the success of this book. We have such an opportunity to not only surprise people who love the book, but reach an even bigger audience by making an undeniably dynamic and also commercial film. The moment that excited me most the other day was when you said you're not funny. You are going to kill that rooftop scene. You know it, I'm sure. Even though it was said in playful self deprecation that we all participate in, it made me think of the process as a whole. Please know I trust that on a good day you've got me. And I hope that you trust that I've got you if you want it. So she's sitting here saying, like, dude, we got each other's backs. And here she goes. Totally taking over his film, but whatever. All right. So he said, continues, we're in this together, and we are two of the most determined people I know. We also have very high bars set for ourselves. To collaborate with with that type of partner is a gift that neither of us will squander because we both care too much about the result and also the experience. I have no motives except for you to win as a director, as an actor, as a studio, as a writer. If you win, I win. If you win, our movie wins. We are aligned, and I will bring everything I have to this. The tone must change drastically to be at the point we're at now. So, geez, Lou, like what happened? I say geez, Lou because it's funny to me because it's from Everybody Loves Raymond, the dad. Frank, he used to say, geez, a Lou. So I like to say that if you ever catch me saying that, that's where I get it from. All right, Blake Lively says, as for Redacted and Ryan, and Redacted for that matter, I'm the luckiest MFer on the planet to have them at my my dance moms, level stage moms. They are embarrassingly effusive. That said, they're also my most trusted partners and the people I go to first with anything creative I touch, and I'm the person they each go to first. That reciprocal creativity and support has been one of my life's greatest and most fulfilling gifts. Man, they think so highly of one another, don't they? Or of themselves. Like these untouchable, oh my God, I'm Blake Lively and no one can touch me. And my two strong stage moms are Ryan and Taylor. So ridiculous. Mm, when they loved and signed off on the pages, I felt good to send them to you. They asked they asked what you thought specifically after they checked in so many times. I told them that you laughed a bunch and said it's probably a blend, but you appreciate my passion so much, which of course didn't feel great for me or them to have my passion be praised instead of any specific contribution or even just that you didn't like the pages, which was fine also. There it is. She wants to be more than just this vapid, empty actress. She wants more. That's why she wants to be the director, credit, producer. That's why she's got to make it all about her, make the wardrobe all hers, because she has to be contributing in some way. She can't just show up, do her job as an actress, and go home. She's got to somehow take some kind of control. She says, so I think they wanted you and me to see how they felt about the work because you've been by my side so you've been by my side far too many experiences where I've been overlooked. I spoke to you about this when we first met. They've watched me handwrite scripts because the director is too afraid to send the FDX file, yet he scans and has someone hand type the 120 pages on my pencil note rewrites. They've watched me be hired as a writer and paid a significant fee for it, but on the condition that I never ask for credit, which I could give a shit about. It's more the principle of the dynamics at play. They've watched the other side of it too, where I'm told at signing on I'm told at signing on that I'm wanted as a true collaborator, but once we get to work, I'm really just wanted as a yes man audience and actor. Both Ryan and blank redacted have established themselves as absolute titans and writers and storytellers outside of the primary gig, just singing or just acting or redacted just directing. I'm so lucky to have them as creative barometers, but all like she's really talking about this a lot, but also to have them as the people who prop me up and make sure I've seen for all I can and do offer because they know firsthand all I contribute. They also know I'm not always as good at making sure I'm seen and utilized for fear of threatening egos or fear of affecting the ease of the process. They don't give a shit about that, and because of that, everyone listens to them with immense respect and enthusiasm. So I guess I have to stop worrying about people liking me. If you ever get around to watching Game of Thrones, you'll appreciate that I'm Khaleesi, and like her, I happen to have a few dragons. She's calling Ryan and Taylor dragons. Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift are her dragons, and she's Khaleesi, the queen of dragons. For better or worse, but usually for better because my dragons also protect those I fight for, so really we can all benefit from those gorgeous monsters of mine. You will too, I can promise you. Alrighty then. Difficult proved to be gross understatement. Though Baldoni initially invited Lively to make changes to the script, Lively began altering the script daily. The frequency of Lively's revisions alarmed the producers, director, and studio, who anticipated that her interference would persist every day of the shoot and disrupt the carefully planned production schedule. Each shooting day was intricately scheduled long in advance, and Lively's constant changes placed significant stress on the production crew, not to mention financial strain on Wayfarer. These are some text messages produced. We've got the producer here and James Heath on this side. So the producer says, are you listening to this? She's fixing the script. I think Angie's advice was actually wrong. Blake is now directing the movie. This is bad. Jamie Heath says, I'm listening. Talking through it is better than not seeing what's possible as long as any decision is done with approval. Producer says, not for something that was already intimately planned. This will be every day of the shoot. Heath says, I know, I'm not sure what can be done honestly at this point in terms of Blake. So she's posing to be quite a problem, not just to Baldoni, but to others and causing problems with the production of the film. More than a year later, during a red carpet interview at the New York film premiere, Lively stated the iconic rooftop scene, my husband actually wrote it. Nobody knows that, but you know. But you now. So who did she say that to? New an interview at the New York film premiere. So as the movie is premiering, already done, completed, premiering, Justin Baldoni is just now finding out with the rest of the world that Ryan Reynolds wrote the scene on the rooftop, not Blake, the one that Ryan and Taylor were pushing for so hard because Blake wrote. Yeah, Blake didn't write it. It was Ryan. And Justin didn't know that until after the film was completed. This startling revelation directly contradicted Lively's previous insistence that she had written the scene and certainly casts Ryan's high praise for the rewritten scene in a different light. The film's credited screenwriter, when asked about the claim that Reynolds had written the scene, graciously responded, "So if I'm being told that Ryan wrote it, then great, how wonderful." She went on to acknowledge, "There were a few little flourishes and I did not write. And if those flourishes came from Ryan, I think that's wonderful." There's a source there for the footnote. This was also the first time that plaintiffs learned that Reynolds, who had no formal role whatsoever in the film's production, had made unauthorized changes to the script in secret. Baldoni, equally blindsided by the news, which he discovered in real time during a recorded interview with Access Hollywood, reacted by also praising Reynolds so as not to harm Lively. Reynolds, who apparently wrote the scene, and possibly others during the WGA strike or the film. So instead of making it, going, if he's asked about it, in real time and whatever, they ask him for a reaction and he doesn't even have time to process it. His first reaction is protect them. Just say, "Yeah, Ryan did a great job. We really appreciate his contribution and couldn't have done it without him." Yada yada. Because that's how you just acquiesce, appease, and move on and not put that other person in the hot seat because obviously Justin's the bigger person here. So Lively's remarks about Reynolds' purported contribution to the script raised eyebrows sky high at Sony, who told Wayfarer that they certainly needed some clarity on public comments made about Ryan Reynolds potentially contributing writing services for the rooftop scene. So Sony didn't know, Wayfarer didn't know, and they find out in real time too. That's not a good thing. So this is Sony Legal Affairs to Wayfair Counsel, but the emails are redacted. Hello, redacted. We certainly need some clarity on public comments about Ryan Reynolds potentially contributing writing services for the rooftop scene. Can you provide additional information on this as there are no contracts, his services are not in the chain, nor is his name anywhere in the credits? One of the many media reports which cite the claim made by Blake Lively. They give a link. Thanks for clarifying. If services were rendered, obviously we require signed documentation immediately. Wayfarer team to Sony legal team. Hello. Your email was shared with me by Redacted in order to address this issue. We are not aware of any writing services rendered by Ryan Reynolds. Regardless of what is being said publicly, this is not something we are aware of. We are learning about the allegations in real time. Please let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, we got lots of questions. Why the hell did Ryan Reynolds write the scene and we're not finding out until afterwards? And Sony is pissed that they are just finding out this now too. They got to be protected too. And this affects more than just Justin Baldoni. This affects a lot of people when you act like this and think that the world is yours and you can do whatever you want with it. So, still, during the pre production phase, Lively and Reynolds raised entirely false allegations of fat shaming against Baldoni, an accusation that, as evidence will show, was categorically false. Baldoni had been introduced to trainer Don, who became Baldoni's personal trainer by Lively. So Baldoni has a personal trainer, this guy Don. He introduces Lively to Don. Don directed Baldoni preparation for the film role, including his nutrition and exercise, making special accommodations for Baldoni's back surgery or back injury. Remember, he had back problems, which is why he needed to know her weight so that he could do the lifting scene potentially, if possible. So, um, he just had a back injury, a low back injury, which means, yeah, picking people up might be difficult. Baldoni even paid to receive Don's meal delivery service. So he was also receiving meals from Don, the trainer. So this is from Don or to Don. Who's who here? Okay, speak later today. I can get you a program this week. I think this is Justin says, sure, just got to New York City for the day. Had hey bud, tried you. He says, calling a few, cool, standing by. He sends some Dropbox link. Says, here you go, 4 things. The jumps are to be low intensity, and this is to improve performance. Go 50% intensity for the first few weeks. Let's sub the dead stop rows for chest supported rows. So whatever movement he's doing there, he's doing another one. And then stay out of lumbar extension. Your low back should not arch. Week one should be 70 to 80% intensity. Do not push and add the cardio like we discussed. Let's jump on a call after you review. And then he says, amazing, can't wait to check it out. Thank you. So privately, so this is proof that Baldoni uses him as his trainer. Privately, Baldoni reached out to Don as his personal trainer to ask what Lively weighed so that he could train his back muscles in preparation for a lift scene. This was important to avoid injury not only to Baldoni, who suffered from lifelong back injuries, multiple bulging discs, and chronic pain, but also to Lively, if the lift could not be completed successfully and safely. So it's important to coordinate this information. It's not just, he's trying to shame her in some way. Notwithstanding Lively's recent attempts to deny the existence of any such scene, it was only mixed at her insistence. Nixed, sorry. So it was nixed. The scene where Rao was supposed to pick Lily up got cut after having planned and rehearsed it. They cut it. So the next morning, probably because of she was all mad that he was going to ask her weight. The next morning, Baldoni was summoned to the penthouse by Lively and greeted by Reynolds, who swore at Baldoni and accused him of fat shaming his wife. How dare you effing ask my wife's weight? What's wrong with you? He said. The confrontation from Reynolds and Lively was so aggressive that Baldoni felt he had no choice but to offer repeated and completely unwarranted apologies for what was a good faith and reasonable question to ask of his trainer, especially when you're in a movie together and you have to pick that person up. Reynolds demanded Baldoni remove the scene entirely. Well, there you have it. That's why it got out. Lively refused to perform the lift scene in the end, even after it was rehearsed with a stunt double. In her own compliment, Lively flat out lies, in her own complaint, Lively flat out lies about the absence of this scene by claiming the scene wasn't in the film. The only reason the scene wasn't in the film is because Lively and Reynolds ensured that it be taken out of the film. Are we catching on now? How this is playing out? Accommodating Lively, Baldoni rewrote the scene with Lively, despite the fact that for creative reasons, this scene was important to him as a storyteller and director. In fact, Lively had earlier expressed insecurity about her postpartum figure, and Baldoni made every attempt to genuinely reassure her. In this exchange, he stated as her director that anything you feel insecure about, we will talk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I just don't want you to stress about your body. It's the last thing you need. When he later tried to do just that, Lively responded with allegations of harassment, followed by a lawsuit. So, yeah. Blake says, kicking ass, but it's still a ton of work with not a ton of time. What's the chance we can go do body scenes at the end of the schedule? He says, I'm sure you are. Honestly, there's 1 billion moving parts to schedule right now. I just turned in the rewrite, and so they have to and so they are hard at work. So much of it comes down to locations and the other cast availability, etc. So to be really honest, I have no clue. I want you to know you will look amazing. Anything you are insecure about, we will talk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I just don't want you to stress about your body. It's the last thing you need. As soon as I have a rough schedule that's even remotely accurate, I'll share and I'll make sure the team keeps this in mind as well. So he this is like the sweetest response. Like if she's being insecure, don't worry about it. I'll walk you through whatever we got to do to make you comfortable. I don't want you to stress. Here in writing. And yet she's saying this is harassment, and I don't get that. Blake Lively responds, thank you for your voice memo. It is deeply appreciated. You are everything you promised to be as a collaborator. Thank you. So he's nice. So he's a good guy to work with. Yeah, what's the problem? I know my job here, and this piece is in big part my job. We both understand the assignment as actors in the role, or as actors in the roles, but also as producers and also as marketers. Why she keep doing that? Like we're all these other things besides actors, because she doesn't like just being the actor. She wants more. She wants to do more. She sees people doing more, like Justin Baldoni doing, producing, directing, and acting. She's like, well, I don't want to be just an actress. I want people to think that I contributed too. We understand artistically, yes, but but we get what we need to do in all aspects for this movie commercially. As woke as we both are and work to be, this movie requires a certain aesthetic. It's a part of the job that we both excitedly signed up for. I don't shy away from it because it's not problematic, it's the assignment. Like when someone is about to start an athletic event, it's their job to be in top shape. My husband and I both look at certain roles as athletic events, and this is one of them. It's not always a part of the job, but on this one it is, and that's great. As much as I'd love to not think about it, that would be irresponsible and also impossible because it's unrealistic to not acknowledge what I need to do. This is my job here, and I meet my responsibilities with extreme work ethic. I look for solutions to achieve my high goals instead of lowering my goals. We will win when we're each firing at our highest capabilities. And you and I both are and will continue to. And I just need as much time as possible because I just had my fourth baby. I understand that you'll never personally know all the nuances of the challenges unless you lived this physical moment in time I'm in with this physical road ahead. So having your understanding and support to help me pull this off is critical and very, very appreciated, not just in my experience now, but also healing from experiences past. So thank you. We are gonna kill it and be so fit they have to Lola us to look good, to look less banging. I don't know what that means. It's probably industry term. All right, so Lively then delivered an ultimatum. If Baldoni could not get on board with her work methods, he had 2 weeks to recast her. I did not know that. He gave her 2 weeks to get on board. Implicit in this ultimatum was a threat to destroy Baldoni's reputation and career. As Lively well knew, Baldoni has worked hard throughout his career to earn and deserve a reputation based on his passionate advocacy for women's rights, a reputation she would later exploit and weaponize against him. If Lively were to back out of the film, especially based on accusations of fat shaming, Baldoni's reputation and life's work would be left in tatters. He had no choice but to bow to Lively and Reynolds' demands. Concerns about Lively's undue influence over the film began to grow even before filming started. So here's the producer again to Jamie Heath. He cannot let her have opinions on everything. And Heath says, Blake? Producer says, or she's going to be co-directing this film. Yes. Heath says, yeah, we were talking about that a lot yesterday. Producer says, exactly. This is why everyone is starting to lose it. We've been talking about the same thing for months. Jamie Heath says, yep, it's starting to get resolved. Producer said, no, it's not. This is the first time Lively openly moved to seize control of the film from Baldoni, but it would not be the last. Filming begins as Lively builds her takeover strategy. Principal photography began for the film in early May 2023 on set. Lively continued to maintain what later appeared to be a facade of a close, caring relationship with Baldoni, even as she continued to make escalating demands for creative control. So she appears fake, friendly, whatever. We're friendly, we're close, we send these meaningful messages back and forth to one another, but I'm trying to steal your movie behind your back. By the time production began, Lively and Baldoni had worked closely together for months, and Lively expressed warm gratitude for her collaboration with Baldoni on the eve of filming. This note means so much to me. I'm excited to start tomorrow. But it's only one piece of the journey. We started months ago, and I'm grateful for all we've built so far. Thank you for caring so much and for putting every bit of you into showing it. You have given so much of your time to fight for great, and that hasn't gone unappreciated or unseen for a moment. Let's do this shit. And then, oh, that's it. Okay. Throughout the first filming period, Lively continued to share her open and unguarded thoughts on life and her character. She talked about wardrobe choices to make her character much sexier. And those are her words. This is from Blake to Justin. We'll show you both ways, but Beanie is much sexier. It's the look. Feels TV without, especially with a crop top on in the snow. It justifies the rest of the skin. And also, if a girl also is a girl, I would check out walking down the street because it washes the effort of the rest of the look. What? From Blake to Justin. So she's saying, and also is a girl I would check out walking down the street because it washes the effort of the rest of the look. I don't know what that last part means, but she would check herself out. How? How self-centered are you that you say you would check yourself out in that outfit? I mean, really? Lively continued to express her warm appreciation and respect for Baldoni as filming continued, even as she acknowledged she could be difficult and critical of others using the kind of language she herself would have alleged to be inappropriate. Lively's use of the word ballbuster would certainly have made it on her 17-point list had it been Baldoni who said it. So here Baldoni is saying, I'm not going to tell you that you were amazing because you teased me for being so sentimental, but you were amazing today. And Lively says, thank you. I do appreciate it. I'm just a ball buster, but it means a lot to me. I care a great deal and always want to deliver. You were terrific. I'm proud of everything we did today, but really every day. He says, or he loved her comment and he said, thank you. Some prayer hands. Lively's intimate comfort with Baldoni continued as filming progressed. Remember the little video snippet I showed you? In June of 2023, after the alleged harassment and uncomfortable situations allegedly occurred, she even invited Baldoni to her trailer to rehearse while pumping milk for her children, her newborn. So Lively was so close and comfortable with Baldal. Here, I didn't read it. I'm pumping in my trailer if you want to work out our lines. Why would you invite him for that if you were uncomfortable with that? Lively was so close and comfortable with Baldoni that she freely breastfed in front of him during meetings. She took photos of him holding and soothing her baby in her penthouse. They laughed deliriously during late night writing sessions. All of these events took place after the alleged harassment. So even after she makes these false allegations about him, he's still nice to her. This guy may be a saint. I don't know. Lively's accusations seemed to come out of the blue. She even knew his tea order. En route to you, can I get you anything? He says, no, no, all good. Wait, who's talking? This was from Justin asking, can I get you anything? Blake says, no, all good. Thank you, though. I'm getting you a hot matcha. And do you know what Brandon likes? So, how did she know what he liked? Interesting, right? I think, and it's quite possible that she might have made some moves on Baldoni and he resisted her. And this might have been well, I'm going to get you back because you don't want me? Fine. I'll destroy you. Maybe. I don't know. I can't, I'm speculating. I have no proof of that, but there might be some significance to what I just said. I don't know. All right, so Lively herself set the tone for personal discussions on set, including what language was acceptable. For example, on one occasion while filming a restaurant scene, Lively sat on the floor in painfully expensive shoes while discussing with a group of male cast and crew how sexy her shoes were. This is evidenced in film footage captured between scene takes. So they have footage of this, of her talking about her sexy shoes. Lively had no issues using the word sexy herself, but apparently took note both times Baldoni said the word in her response. Though she was loose and relaxed in her speech on set, she was increasingly stringent in the demands she imposed on the production. She rewrote her own dialogue constantly and took it upon herself to make unilateral changes to other characters' lines, effectively rewriting the script day by day. This pattern of domineering interference caused unending interruptions to the production process, leading to entirely unnecessary stress, chaos, and delays, not to mention the other actors who had to learn new lines all of a sudden. It is well documented on film footage how frequently she requested changes and how at every turn Baldoni took her thoughts out of fear of repercussions from Lively and her allies, he consistently tried to accommodate them. During labor strikes, Lively moves to seize absolute power. On May 2nd, 2023, the Writer Guild of America went on strike. Production of the film halted temporarily on June 14th, 2023, due to the WGA picketing. The next day, the production was notified that the WGA had agreed not to picket their set, allowing production to continue. But Lively was already gone and refused to return to the production immediately. Wayfarer reworked the shooting schedule at great expense to film the scenes with the younger versions of the characters instead of footage requiring Lively. On June 27, 2023, production shut down entirely for the pendency of the strike. The SAG-AFTRA strike soon followed, beginning on July 14th, 2023. To make the most of time during the strike, Baldoni began editing the footage that had been captured to date, starting the director's process of turning footage into film. Lively expressed excitement over returning to shoot in the fall in New York, making no mention of any discomfort or harassment that would be brought up only later after months of being apart on the day the strikes ended. Both before and during the strikes, Lively's eager involvement in the production took on a great insistent and manipulative tone as she asked for access to the dailies. 11. Do we have a definition? Dailies refers to the raw footage that was filmed during the day, including the many takes. This is not shared with the cast. So there are dailies out there that might have captured some things that Blake didn't know were captured. So as more and more comes out, I'm going to be interested to see video of those dailies. Um, so she asked for access to the dailies, which actors don't usually get, and early cuts of the scene, both inappropriate and unorthodox requests. So here is her text message asking for that. She says, "Hey, would you mind giving me access to dailies? And I'm curious which takes you liked of the scenes you showed." Redacted. "My manager flew out to visit set and leaves tomorrow a.m. He heard all about it from Warren and I'd love to show him. I appreciate you may be too slammed right now to make this happen, but maybe someone else can facilitate. Thanks so much." But she definitely asked for the dailies, which is not appropriate. She sends another one. "Hey, I hope you and your family are well. I watched the selects you sent. So great. I was so happy and energized. Such solid work from everyone on and off camera. It was really cool to see. We were working so quickly there was never the time to look back. So it was nice to revisit from an audience's perspective. Please let me know who to reach out to get access to the full gallery of dailies. I'm so looking forward to seeing all we have in the can. And of course, any scenes you cut together. I'd love to see. Hope you're having a great summer and hopefully a good edit. Will your assembly be done soon?" Wayfarer, Baldoni, and another producer on the film strategized about how to respond to Lively, which became common practice so as not to trigger backlash from Lively. The text exchange below demonstrates adamant objections to giving Lively the dailies. Not only was it an inappropriate overreach, but there was a very real concern that a simple ask, such as rewriting a couple of scenes, would turn into a complete takeover of rewriting the script, which, she starts seeing the dailies and she's like, well, we should have done this scene differently and we should have done that and we should do this. So let's redo them and let's rewrite the script altogether and blah, blah, blah. You know, what's stopping her from doing that? So they rightly feared that giving her the dailies could turn into her demanding to edit the whole movie, which is exactly what ultimately happened. This is a text message, Justin Baldoni. "Hey, would you mind," to producer, I'm assuming it says, "Hey, would you mind giving me access to dailies? And I'm curious okay, so he's sending a screenshot. Gotcha. He's sending a screenshot of her asking for the dailies. So he sends it to the producer. Producer says, "I'd say no, but check her contract first. LOL." Someone said, "I was waiting for Redacted to respond first. It's an absolute no for me as well, respectfully. Not sure best way to respond being how delicate it is." Producer says, "I think you can either not respond until tomorrow," and then it cuts off. But as you can see, oh, here we have more. Not You could not respond until tomorrow, or say you need to talk to the team, or just say no, you're not comfortable with it. Maybe we can this be a Sony decision, and you can respond with that for now. Bozzoni said, "Thank you, spoke to Redacted too. I think I'm just going to say yes and send her a playlist of a bunch of good takes from different scenes that last for 3 or 4 days." Redacted said, "No, LOL." Producer says, "We all said no, and you're going to send?" He says, "No, she liked the idea of a playlist. No to access to all dailies." I wasn't clear in my text. He says, "Okay. Makes sense." He says, "Basically send her a playlist of what I showed her agent, and then If or when she responds and says, "Can you send me everything?" That's what I'll say. I'm not comfortable with that as I haven't even seen everything. Redacted believes that she will then start to edit the movie and tell me which takes to use if she has access to everything. Producer says, "Yes, I agree with that." Baldoni says, "Also, this is exactly how the writing process started. She asked if it was okay if she could take a pass at some dialogue tweaks on the rooftop scene. Just talked to Blake. She's in very good spirits and seems happy about this. Very nice conversation." Producer says, "Good. Great to hear," says Jamie Heath. And then, I don't know, something else. All right, so after consulting internally as to how to respond, Baldoni politely pushed back, explaining that it was much too early in the editing process to share footage. He says, "Hi, sorry for slow response. Yes, family is good. Brutal being away for so long and happy we are finally together. Lots happening, all good things overall. Had to hire new editors who I adore. They are going through everything now. So I'm happy you felt energized by what you saw. Your performance is really, really beautiful. Stunning, actually. Regarding dailies, obviously, I want your input. That's why I sent the 5-hour playlist, but at this point, it's too early for me to share all the dailies. I want my cut in early August, given the new editors, and still going through the rest myself. Also, figuring out our shooting plan as I have to cut and combine and find ways to scale down for budget. Once I'm physically in the edit and have touched scenes myself, I'd love to share with you. I hope you enjoy this time off with your family. Talk soon." Oh boy. At that point, Lively reluctantly paid nominal lip service to the notion that Baldoni, the film's director, was entitled to the time and space needed for his directorial cut, but continued to push. So she responds, "I don't want to infringe on your time. With your cut, of course, don't feel the need to send me cut scenes. I was just excited to see. Regarding dailies, none of the producers have had access to dailies. It's just you? Question mark. So Baldani shared limited scenes with Lively, feeling uncomfortable all the while, yet he already knew that he had to bow to Lively's demands in order to get out the film and its powerful message. Finally, he put his foot down, sending Lively one final scene and then telling her that he would not be sending any more cuts until he has finished his editorial process. He says, "Sorry, back to back meetings, all good. Love the excitement, and I'm excited to show you when time is right. No, not just me, Redacted and Jamie have access to dailies, but not assemblies or cuts." And then, "Hi, birthday, Blake. Coincidentally, today is the last day of my edit as we are closing the room until the shoot again. It's been wildly successful, and I'm so happy. You are so fantastic in the film. I'm sending you over one of my favorite sections. I won't be posting or sending anything to anyone after this, but I'm excited to show you more in person when we come back. Please watch before Sunday as all Pix accounts get shut down on Monday until we are back up. Can't wait to hear what you think. Have an amazing day. XX." So the WGA strike ended on September 29th, 2023, and the SAG-AFTRA strike ended on November 9th, 2023, months before Baldoni had made Lively's representative aware that they would continue pre-production in order to hit the ground running when the strikes ended. But Lively and her lawyers had been busy devising other plans during the strike. The same day that the SAG-AFTRA strike ended, Baldoni, the studios, and producers were eager to resume production. Instead, they were met with an email from Lively's lawyers who sent Wayfarer an unsettling and unexpected 17-point list of non-negotiable conditions that must be met before Lively would return to work. We talked about that. There were all these conditions he had to agree to. The stunning list was drafted for the apparent purpose of insinuating or outright claiming that Baldoni, Heath, and others had engaged in inappropriate conduct during filming. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is Wayfarer Lively. It ends with us. Confidential. 12 messages. This is to the Wayfarer team. From who? I don't know. Doesn't say. Dear Wayfarer team. Lively's counsel. Okay, so this is from Lively's attorney. Dear Wayfarer team. With a tentative resolution of the SAG-AFTRA strike, we are writing to address how to handle a return to the set of it. It ends with us, the film. It is no surprise to the film's producers that the experience of shooting the film has been deeply concerning on many levels. The complaints of our client and others have been repeatedly conveyed and well documented throughout pre-production and photography. While we reserve all legal rights, at this stage our client is willing to forego a more formal HR process in favor of everyone returning to work and finishing the film as long as the set is safe moving forward. In order for our client to feel safe returning to production, we are attaching a list of protections that will need to be guaranteed and observed by the film's producers. If the production is unwilling to accept or uphold these protections, our client is prepared to pursue her full legal rights and remedies. This letter is not intended to constitute a full statement of all facts and circumstances relating to this matter. It is not intended to be, nor should it be construed as a waiver, release, or relinquishment of any of the client's rights or remedies, legal or equitable, all of which are hereby expressly reserved. Sincerely, Lively's counsel. Both Wayfarer and Sony attempted to revise the document to make it factually accurate, being that their representation of set culture was inaccurate, and sent comments through Wayfarer's attorneys who incorporated Sony's notes, but Lively's counsel's response made it clear that the list was not open for negotiation. The Wayfarer team, or to the Wayfarer team from Lively's counsel, the list we provided was not intended as a starting point for a negotiation. Rather, it is a set of protections that's needed to be in place in order for our client to return to work. Please let us know as soon as possible whether Wayfarer will agree to accept all of the protections included in our original communication, including, without limitation, number 11 and number 12, with the following additional clarifications. Number 14, in addition to the stunt double, Wayfarer to engage Blake approved body doubles for both characters for all simulated intimate scenes. Number 15, the requirement applies to any future filming as well as to any footage that was already been shot. And then 16, we can limit this requirement to scenes involving nudity, partial nudity, and simulated intimate scenes. It was clear that Wayfarer would have to sign the document as is, despite the falsity of its insinuations. The alternative was to lose millions of dollars, cost hundreds of people their jobs after they had been out of work for months, and destroy their relationship with Sony. Nonetheless, the demands themselves were agreeable. Indeed, some were already in place. To illustrate the distorted and downright fictional basis for the 17-point list of demands, each of them is addressed in turn below. And I think that's a good place to stop. We'll get to the 7-point list in part 2. We will read through that. I think this is a good place to stop, and I will see you guys in the next one. Hopefully, I think this is interesting. There's a lot here to go over, and it's really good. And he's got some good receipts, much better than Blake's were, I think. Blake's receipts didn't actually say what she said they were saying in a lot of them. So she would give context that wasn't in the actual screenshot or whatever. So I don't know. So far I gotta be team Baldoni. That's just how it is. I don't know. What do you guys think? If I'm misreading it or what? Let me know your take on it. Are you team Team Blake or Team Baldoni? Let us know in the comments below. Please hit the like button on your way out, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye now.